Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome back to our ProRevenge, where you'll hear tales of people getting what they deserve. In this episode, there are 4 stories. The first is about a shady couple who basically steals a car from a dealership. The second is how OP deals with an annoying upstairs neighbor. The third is a story of a parent getting some sweet revenge on her neighbor because the neighbor made fun of her child. Seriously, who does that? I hope you stay for the stories today and hit that subscribe button for future stories. Let's get into it. This first story is titled, Steal My Car? I'll Wreck Your Life. I'm part of a small family-owned used car dealership. We have maybe 50 cars on the lot at any time, and our main business is subprime, helping people with less than perfect credit. We truly want to help those who can't afford or don't have the credit to buy from a new car dealership. We're actually very liked in our small community. Recently I had these customers, let's call her wife and him husband, in their early 20s. They came into my dealership and I liked them. They seemed like a nice young couple trying to start their lives. They had 2 very sweet little girls and looked like they could use a break. They'd made some mistakes in their early lives and had less than perfect credit. I coached them on how to improve their credit, and they seemed sincerely interested in fixing it. So I worked hard to get them a loan, with the wife's mother co-signing, for a gently used SUV. The wife was literally crying, hugging me, because every other dealership had turned them down. Now, they were a little short on the down payment, so I took a check for the balance, and we agreed that I'd cash it on the husband's next payday. That was mistake number 1. I genuinely wanted to give them a break. I forgot about them until the next week when I dropped the check at the bank along with other deposits. The next thing I knew, I received a notice that the check had bounced, along with a couple of insufficient funds fees attached for me. The check came back with a dollar amount that's considered a first-degree misdemeanor in our state, just under a felony. I reached out to the wife to see what happened and how we could make arrangements to get this taken care of. The last thing I wanted was to go after a young couple with 2 small kids. At first the wife was a little shocked and insisted that the funds were pulled from their accounts. I showed her a picture of the bounced check and she understood. She said they could pay half in 2 weeks when she got paid again, and then in another 2 weeks, pay the other half. I agreed to this and took them at their word, which was mistake number 2. A couple of weeks rolled around and I didn't hear from the wife or husband. Now I was thinking I'd been taken for a ride. They'd been ignoring my calls and texts, totally ghosting me. I got a call from the bank and found out that they hadn't made their first payment either. With this particular bank, if a customer does not make their first payment, we have to essentially buy back the deal. Basically, we have to give the bank the money they sent us for the loan. After leaving almost 10 voicemails, they finally called me back. I got a sob story that he got let go from his job, but he just got a new one, and Mom was going to help them get back on their feet. I went through a lot of trouble with the bank to make a deal that if they made their payment, they'd keep the loan, but I was still on the hook if they missed any of the next 3 payments. The wife also told me they'd make payments to me on the bounce check once he started getting his paychecks. So, I agreed. They made their payment to the bank, and I went about my life, until the next month came around. The bank notified me, saying that the wife didn't make the next month's payment and wouldn't answer any of their calls. At this point, I was furious and ready to get their vehicle. They wouldn't answer any of my calls, so I called their mom, who co-signed for the vehicle, which I hated to do, but she's responsible for the loan as well. Mom scrounged everything in her Social Security paycheck to try to make the payment for them, but she was short. Wife and husband told her they'd cover the balance, and of course they didn't. The bank said the deal was a buyback, and we needed our money back for the loan within 7 days. The only way I could pay back their loan was if my floor plan, basically a giant credit card we buy cars on, got pictures of the car in my possession. I tried to call, text, and email to get a hold of the wife and husband, and they blocked me on everything. They were basically just stealing the vehicle without paying. They even blocked Mom, who'd been trying to help them get this handled. Yes, they even took advantage of their own mother in this ordeal. I just wanted the car back and to move on with my life. So, this is where I went pro-revenge on them. I began by dropping the check off at the local prosecutor, and they were delighted to file charges against them. I did some skip tracing, calling family members, all of whom were more than happy to help because, come to find out, the husband had had 7 jobs in 4 months and had burned every single family member with the money they'd borrowed. I found the wife's father on Facebook. I found out that the father had been trying to take custody of the 2 kids because of how they treated them. He informed me that they were staying in a sister's house right over the border. Note that we're on the state line of 2 states, remember this. I called up the repo company and even drove an hour myself to go get the vehicle. They'd been hiding it in the garage, according to the neighbors and the repo company. I did some research and found out that they were both on probation for stealing a bunch of stuff from multiple stores. So, of course, I found and called Mrs. Probation Officer to see if she had their last known address. I then mentioned to her that they were staying across the state line and had bounced a very large check to me, and they were facing fresh charges in my town. She appreciated the knowledge. While I was up at their house one evening, I talked to one of the neighbors, who also hated them, and convinced the neighbor to call me if they saw the vehicle outside. It took one day. I got the call and sent a very large friend who lives nearby to go get the vehicle. After many heated words and berating my friend, they handed over the vehicle, but not before calling me and telling me they were going to sue me for everything I've got. I'm out quite a bit of money from the ordeal, but here's the best part. I just found out that by living out of state, they violated probation and got sentenced to 30 days in jail for that. They also had their video court date with the local judge on the new charges for the bounced check. I got my car back, and guess what? They lost their kids. The deadbeat wife's father got custody of the 2 kids. You're such a kind-hearted person, but it goes to show that even people with the biggest hearts who truly want to help can only be messed with so many times until they decide enough is enough. He also helped make the kids' lives much better. What a great pro-revenge story. This next story is titled, The Most Expensive Way Ever to Get the Police Involved. My wife and I had a first-floor condo in what had previously been a nice complex. Unfortunately, over time, the couple who lived above us, hereafter designated as AA for angry alcoholic and AAG for angry alcoholic girlfriend, began drinking heavily, or maybe they just got louder about their drinking. Nearly every night became a massive screaming match between them. They'd stay up until 2 a.m, shouting at each other at the top of their lungs, and then one of them would put on music at full blast to drown out the other. Their taste in music wasn't actually bad, but when it's 2 a.m. and my floor is vibrating, it's a problem. Sometimes, they'd even take their fight out into the parking lot, just to be sure all the neighbors were treated to a detailed explanation of who had cheated on whom and who was threatening to dump whom. Neither of them ever actually left, they just went out to their car and threatened to, loudly. After arguments the following day, you could usually find the guy working on his car in the carport right outside our front door. As far as I could tell, all he did was sit there and rev the engine for hours on end. I have no idea when he slept, maybe while we were at work. We and the other neighbors complained to the condo board, who issued a warning, which AA and AAG ignored. Eventually, the condo board started fining them, but AA found a genius solution: just don't pay the fine. All the condo board could do was eventually put a lien on AA's condo, but that would only become a problem for them when they sold the place. Apparently, they couldn't actually foreclose on him, or maybe they just didn't want to go to the trouble. Trying to talk to him directly was useless. If we managed to catch him during a rare moment of sobriety, he'd just kind of blow us off. But if we caught him while he was drunk, he'd get pretty threatening and was then even louder for days. We even tried calling the police, but they weren't interested unless he had actually crossed the line into a felony. They gave him a few warnings, which he also ignored. Eventually, my wife and I decided to sell our condo and move for multiple reasons, which definitely included AA and AAG. Because of the timing of our move, our realtor wound up showing the condo while we were home a couple of times. We discovered that one of our potential buyers was a city police officer, her husband, and their 1-year-old baby. Unfortunately, their offer was $3,500 below the top offer. So, after talking it over, we told our realtor to accept their offer anyway, and we'd just eat the loss. So AA and AAG had a cop move in directly below them. I'm Facebook friends with a couple of our old neighbors, and in the 6 months since we moved, AA has been arrested multiple times. He had his car impounded at least once. Apparently, now he's trying to be quieter, but that only lasts until he gets drunk, and then he's screaming again, and the cycle of getting arrested continues. His new downstairs neighbor has long ago had enough of this, and does not appreciate that he wakes up her kid. I guess she also doesn't appreciate that he shouts at her. He's in an obnoxious neighbor war with the cop, and he's losing badly. Hopefully soon he'll wind up in jail for longer than a couple of days. Guys, that condo board needs to get their act together. My friend lives in a condo and was recently threatened with eviction because someone complained about her dog being too loud and always barking. So, how the heck did this couple keep getting away with arguing at 2 a.m, and how the heck did the other neighbors not come out and throw stuff at them? The next story is titled, Make Fun of My Kid? I'll get you back. My next-door neighbor was a college student. She lived with our actual neighbor, her boyfriend. She's a typical crazy college kid. Weekend parties, drinking on her patio all hours of the night, and weird hours. You know the drill. I figured she was just trying to experience college life, so why not? You do you, lady. Anyway, one summer night last year, she was sitting out on her back patio with her girlfriends doing their drunk thing. I was out wrapping up some stuff with my toddler daughter. At the time, she had a medical condition that caused her to walk a little weird, nothing life-altering and something that would heal with time. She did have a wobbly waddle to her, especially when running. Sometimes she would fall right over. She was out running around with the dog, and the ladies next door were waving and telling her how cute she was. All good. So, we went back inside, and I handed her off to my husband real quick. I wanted to go to the bedroom to change the sheets for bed later. Now, to set the scene, my bedroom is closest to the patio next door. The windows were open because, well, it's summer, and it's hot out. I could clearly hear what they were talking about next door. Okay guys, I have to pause here and let you know that the next part is what the OP wrote, and I'm just reading it exactly as is. I don't mean this to be offensive to anybody in any way. It's just that if I censor it, I'll take away from the story, so I apologize in advance. The girl said, "Did you see the way she was walking? What a little weirdo." Then they sang, my little weirdo, to the cheerful tune of My Little Pony, I guess because that's what my kid had been wearing. This was followed by sounds that my neighbor thought a mentally challenged child would make, followed by laughter. No, you did not. They didn't realize that anyone could hear them, but I had the lights flipped on and was at the window shouting in record time. I screamed, "Stay right there, you jerks!" Dead silence as they realized someone heard them. I came flying down the stairs, where I was intercepted by my husband, who had no idea what I was screaming about. At this point, I was so mad that I just burst into tears when telling him. We both decided it would be better to wait to confront them until tomorrow. Everyone next door was wasted, and there was no way of telling how many people she had over. Not long after this, we all went to bed. My husband was outside having his last smoke before sleep, and the next door jerk sent her boyfriend to put the fire pit out. My husband and he were talking, and the boyfriend said, "That got crazy earlier, huh?" My husband responded, "Well, your girlfriend did make fun of a child, so understanding that as her parents were upset shouldn't be too hard." The boyfriend responded, "Ugh, man, you know how girls are when they're drinking. They say things they don't mean. All girls are like that when they're drunk." My husband told him, "I've drank with a lot of women and have never heard one of them making fun of a kid behind their back, a 2-year-old no less. So, yeah, that excuse doesn't fly with me." The boyfriend then had the audacity to say, "Look, dude, I don't want drama. Just let it go." My husband replied, "Sure, just let your girlfriend know that we're waiting on her heartfelt apology." Needless to say, the boyfriend was going to go with whatever got him into bed with that drunk girl, not a drop of compassion, even though he's a nurse. I waited 1 week to confront her about it because I thought what she did was so shameless that she would surely feel bad. Nope. I happened to be outside one day watering when she came back from wherever she was, and I gave her the stare down. All she could muster was, "You got a problem? Do something about it," before making her way inside. So, the revenge. It turned out that she wanted to be a policewoman in our town. And how do I know that? Well, they sent a letter to the people on our street to feel her out before accepting her into the program, just a standard questionnaire about our dear neighbor friend and whether or not we had an opinion on why she would or wouldn't make a good officer. I wrote a darn essay, you guys, complete with photos of her lovely patio covered in cans and bottles from the night before. I took pictures of their dogs having to sit outside in the pouring rain all day, chained up. I wrote and asked how they would feel if someone on the force made fun of kids with disabilities and who also could possibly show up to work drunk. I sent it back in and just forgot about it. It was petty, yes, but it felt so good. I say this because last night I heard her crying to one of her buddies about how she couldn't seem to break into the local police force, which had been the whole reason she'd pursued her major in college, and she wasn't sure what to do now. I'm not sure my letter did it. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I'm not sure if they tell you why you aren't being considered. But in that moment I felt vindicated. I hope you enjoyed that revenge, you soulless jerk. I hope those jokes at my kid's expense were worth your future career going down the drain. Guys, being drunk is still no excuse for making fun of a little child. I've been blackout drunk many times in my life, and have never even thought of saying anything remotely close to what she said. And no, what her boyfriend said was not even close to being true. Not all women say dumb things when they're drunk, especially something like that. That's what 10-year-old kids would do, not a grown woman. But you'd be surprised how many people in this world are grown adults and still act like they're 10, so I'm not surprised she said what she said. This story is titled, "Coworker Gets Me Fired" My many years waiting for revenge. If revenge is best served cold, then my revenge was many years in the freezer. And this week it was finally pulled out and had whipped cream and a cherry put on top before it was finally served. I worked for Company A for almost a decade. It had one small team consisting of 10 people doing commissioned work for businesses in my city. The owner treated us like family, knowing that we worked long and hard days, sometimes 60 hours a week. He paid us better than expected with bonuses on the regular. He even gave the whole company a week off, paid, when his son was getting married so we could attend it. We had our squabbles, like any other family, and things weren't always bright and perfect, but this is to show how nicely the owner treated his employees and didn't screw me over after working there for years. The manager position became open. By then, I was one of the most senior workers with Company A, so I thought I'd apply. A few others were interested in doing so as well. I didn't get the position, mainly because, despite my experience at Company A, I didn't have a business administration degree. Someone who worked for the owner did, so he got it. Realizing the education I would have to get and the demands of this job, I thought long and hard and concluded that if I wanted to go anywhere in life, I would have to get that degree. Coming right out of high school to work for Company A was great, but if I wanted to do something more, I would have to go to university. I talked to the owner and gave my 2 weeks' notice. When I explained what I wanted to do and why, he understood that I was trying to make something of myself. This all becomes relevant later, I promise. Going to university, I found that I had tuition covered through government grants, but not things like food, rent, and so on. So I looked around and eventually found work at Company B. Company B was a retail store with a bigger staff than I'd been used to, somewhere around 50 employees, but it had such a huge employee turnover that it was scary at times. They dealt with a wide range of goods, from groceries to very expensive items. They had a certain niche clientele that they could order items for and cater to. I ended up working part-time in their warehouse and answered to the warehouse supervisor, who answered to the manager. But for this story, only the sales supervisor is relevant. So, skip forward 7 years. In that time, I got my BA degree and worked at Company B the whole time, going from part-time to full-time and eventually applying for the warehouse supervisor position. I was interviewed, got the job, and had been supervisor for months when the manager and I hired Kay as a warehouse clerk. Kay isn't the one to get the revenge, but she played a crucial part in the revenge. Then, this woman, let's call her Karen, gets hired. She started out as a cashier, working quickly up the chain and schmoozing as many coworkers as possible, including the manager. When a sales rep went on maternity leave, she quickly jumped at the chance to work in sales and ended up permanently being a part of that team. Then, as the sales supervisor, soon after me, Karen and I got along like oil and water. We butted heads over things constantly, and she would tell the manager all the small things that I did, but then she would call me a snitch when I reported the issues that she was causing. She would badmouth me and my warehouse staff, talk over me at meetings, and try to take credit for my ideas. She openly told coworkers that I was the cause of many issues and couldn't wait for me to leave. Oh, and she was never at fault. It would be the customer's fault, my fault, the delivery driver's fault, or another coworker's fault. Anything but hers. There were times when we got along well, but they were few and far between. One day, a very expensive ring set, worth over $5,000, was ordered by one of our customers, and it came in. Years ago, I set up a procedure for any type of jewelry so it would not get lost or stolen. The last step is, once we've done everything with it in the warehouse, we take it to the office and have someone put it in the safe immediately. This particular time, I was the one who received the rings. So, once going through the procedure, I told Kay that I was taking it to the office. The only one available who had the combination to the safe was Karen. I asked her if she could open the safe, and she looked at me, looked at the jewelry box in my hand, then said, "Put it down here on my desk. I'll put it away once I'm done with this email." Keep in mind that Karen and I had had a serious spat over something earlier that day, and I generally didn't feel like being close to her if I could help it, so I never saw her put it in the safe myself. The next day I got a call from the manager to come to his office. I headed there to find the manager, Karen, and the HR consultant. And this is where some real trouble hits the fan. The manager told me that the ring set had disappeared. I told them the procedure I followed and that the last I saw of them was with Karen. The manager told me that she checked the box and said the box was empty. The manager then pulled the box out. The box that the rings were in was indeed empty. I swore to the manager that the rings were inside when I checked before giving them to Karen, At this point, it was my word against hers. By a stroke of bad luck, the in-store video recorder had broken down days before the incident, so there was no way to verify what happened. We all knew that someone had to take the blame for it. And that's when Karen struck, saying it was my fault since it was last seen in my hands. The manager asked if this was true. Then I realized that yes, I was indeed the last person to touch the thing, and I never actually saw Karen pick up the box. She gave me a look that screamed, "Gotcha!" The manager and HR consultant asked us both to leave. After what seemed like forever, I got called in. The manager told me that, since I was responsible for the rings at the time and they were now lost, they would be firing me. But since they had no proof as to whether I stole the rings or not, they wouldn't press charges. I went back to the warehouse and told Kay and the other warehouse clerks what just happened. I grabbed my personal belongings and left that day. After a couple of weeks to try to get my head around what just happened and weighing my options, I decided that my first priority was to try to get some sort of job. I considered it lucky if I could get a job flipping burgers with a bad reputation when they asked Company B. I called the owner of Company A to get a good reference from them and explain what happened and why I was calling, only to get the shock of a lifetime. The manager position was about to be open. The guy who I lost the position to was retiring soon due to complicated health reasons. The owner had kept tabs on me while I was at university and understood when I didn't immediately come back to him. But with a golden opportunity like this, he wanted me back, and I wasn't going to say no. I dived into my new job, the one I originally wanted, with the owner I enjoyed working for. I thought then and there that everything would be behind me, not knowing it would come back, not to bite me, but to pay dividends. The revenge I found out about after Karen's reckoning. After I was fired, Kay knew she had to do something about Karen. Kay knew that I wouldn't lose or steal something like the rings, but also knew that, without proof, Karen would deny that she did it and have Kay in her crosshairs to attack next. So, after talking with her husband, she hatched a plan. She started hanging out with Karen, telling her things like, "I'm so glad he's gone," or "I wish he'd been fired much earlier." Karen, feeling high from getting rid of one of her thorns in her side, soaked it all in. After a couple of weeks, she invited Kay and Kay's husband for drinks at her place with her husband months past. And Kay and her husband did regular things together with Karen and her husband, including drinking on the weekends and couple-related events. When together, Kay would occasionally badmouth me, and Karen would agree. Finally, after over a year of playing nice, Kay and her husband were at Karen's house for one of her drinking parties, and Kay randomly badmouthed me, mentioning the rings in passing. Then Karen said something that Kay was waiting for. She said, "I wanted those rings, so I stole them." Kay, hearing this, asked for more details. Kay's husband looked at her and tried to wave her off with one hand, then gave up when Karen kept talking. That day, Karen had stopped writing her email and was going to put the rings in the safe. The safe was open, and she was about to put the rings away when she had an idea. See, as mentioned above, Karen wanted me gone from Company B. She also wanted the rings, and she knew that the cameras weren't working. She figured that she could pocket the rings, tell the manager they were missing, and spin it so I would take the blame. Kay then asked where the rings were now, and Karen, being too drunk and not seeing a reason not to brag, not only told her but showed her where they were in her room. All while Kay's husband had been recording the whole conversation on his phone. Kay gave a copy of the recording to the manager at work the next day, and the police were called immediately. Karen was arrested, and her house was raided. They found the rings, and Kay and her husband gave the recording and testimonies to the police. Karen's reckoning had begun. So, the revenge on my side. I got a call from the prosecutor's office after Karen was arrested and charged with theft over $5,000, among other things. He wanted me to testify about what she did to me. I didn't skip a beat in saying yes. Fast forward to the trial. The prosecutor had me, Kay, and her husband testify and played the recording of Karen admitting that she stole the items. Her attorney tried to throw out the case, saying that Kay just got Karen deliberately drunk, but the judge didn't buy it since there was proof that she drank all the time. The judge was lenient and gave her 5 years in prison, which she yelled was unfair, but I personally thought she got off easy. Meanwhile, as the trial was happening, I was talking with a lawyer to sue Karen for setting me up like she did. We were also going to sue Company B for wrongful termination, but they settled the day they got the notice of the lawsuit and knew they were going to lose. Karen wasn't so lucky. They tried some trickery by having her husband divorce her and saying that he received everything in the divorce, but my lawyer added him to the lawsuit as well. My lawyer asked for a total of $3,500 for emotional distress, back pay from when I was fired until I started with Company A again, and legal fees. And now you're wondering where the metaphoric cherry is on the story. Well, we recently had someone leave Company A, and we were hiring someone to replace them. The owner was going over the resumes and set up interviews for the job this week, and lo and behold, Karen was one of the people to apply. But he didn't know that. She came in at her slotted time, looking to schmooze her way through. Then she saw me. I smiled an evil smile, and she went white. All I said was, "Ah, Karen, how are you? Remember me?" A deer in the headlights look from her. I looked at her resume and said, "I'm sorry. I don't think you'll be a good fit for our company. Thank you for applying." She said not one word and left. After diving into these tales, I want to share my thoughts. Story 1. Steal my car? I'll wreck your life. I was furious reading about this couple's betrayal. The narrator's kindness, helping them secure a car despite their credit issues, makes their actions despicable. Bouncing the check, ghosting, and dodging payments, even from the CO signing mom, showed their true colors. I admire the narrator's tenacity in tracking them down and involving the probation officer. The repo and legal consequences, jail time and losing custody, felt like justified karma. I'd have been tempted to confront them directly, but the narrator's methodical approach ensured they faced real consequences. Those kids deserve better, and I'm glad they're with the grandfather now. Story 2. The most expensive way ever to get the police involved. AA and AAG's disruptive behavior, screaming matches and blaring music at 2 a.m., made me sympathize with the narrator's frustration. The condo board's ineffectiveness was maddening. I'd have pushed harder for eviction. Selling to a cop at a loss was a brilliant move. I love how it backfired on AA, with arrests piling up. The cop neighbor's no-nonsense attitude is perfect for handling such chaos. I'd have relished watching AA's downfall from afar, though I feel for the baby caught in the noise. The narrator's strategic sacrifice paid off, proving sometimes the best revenge is a well-placed neighbor. Story 3. Make fun of my kid. I'll get you back. My heart broke for the narrator's toddler, mocked cruelly by the neighbor. Singing about her medical condition was vile, and the boyfriend's dismissal as girls being drunk was infuriating. I'd have been out that window screaming too, but waiting to confront was smart. The revenge, writing a scathing letter to the police academy, was perfect. I bet it contributed to her rejection, and hearing her cry about her ruined dream felt satisfying. I'd have added more photos of her mess. No one mocks a child, especially one with a disability, without consequences. Drunk or not, she's no cop material. Story 4. Coworker gets me fired. My many years waiting for revenge. Karen's scheming to frame the narrator for theft was despicable. Stealing the rings and pinning it on them, knowing the cameras were down, was low. I felt the narrator's devastation losing their job, but Kay's long-game revenge was masterful. Befriending Karen to extract a recorded confession was genius. I'd have been too impatient for that. The trial and lawsuit outcomes were satisfying, and Karen's failed job application at Company A was the cherry on top. I love the narrator's calm, not a good fit dismissal. Pure poetic justice. Karen learned the hard way, don't cross someone with integrity. And that wraps up another episode of Our ProRevenge. Thanks for joining me for the stories today. If you guys missed the last episode of Our ProRevenge, you need to listen to it right now. I hope you guys got your revenge fix for the day, and I'll see you in the next one.